Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today, we're going to be talking about the Amazon assassin finisher known as Dragon Talon. Dragon Talon is a kick. This is important because kick damage is specific to the boots that you're wearing. It is not governed by your weapon. So kick damage is going to be determined by the quality of the boot, not the boot itself. So I know it seems kind of silly to say the quality of the boot, but it really is that way. A lot of people might look at it differently and be like, "Oh, well, I'm wearing a pair of Gore Riders." Well, no, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a pair of Gore Riders, because Gore Riders are exceptional level boots, and exceptional level boots have a specific damage type. You can upgrade those exceptional level boots to elite boots, and then they have a different damage. So it is the quality of the boot, not what boot you're wearing. In fact, this changes depending on whether or not you upgrade the boots. So, for instance, with the Gore Rider Myrmidon Greaves, they have a kick damage of 83 to 149, and that's because they've been upgraded to their elite tier. However, if you take a look at another pair of Gore Riders that has not been upgraded, and I don't have a non-upgraded pair, they have much less damage. This is also a Myrmidon Greaves. Now, set items don't show their kick damage, but it is actually still there. So even though these Myrmidon Greaves do not actually say 83 to 149 like they should, the kick damage is still being applied correctly if you're wearing them. Once you have your, specific boots on, your kick damage is going to be shown up here. So for instance, with Dragon Talon, you can see my kick damage is currently 773 to 1261. Now, what affects this damage output? I can tell you first off what does not affect it. Weapon enhanced damage does not. Minimum damage and maximum damage do not. Damage plus modifiers like grief weapons do not affect it. So grief does not work on kicks. Plus percent damage to demons, like for instance that you would see on Laying of Hands, it does not work. Plus damage to undead does not work. Claw mastery does not work on kicks. Critical strike and deadly strike also do not work on kicks. There are certain things that do work on kicks, like for instance crushing blow, open wounds, negative defense on a monster, freezes target, things like that. Chance to attack or to cause an effect also work. So for instance, if I were to throw on something silly, like I've got some like hacked items here that have like percent chances on striking. If I go out and I kick some monsters, of course I don't have boots on at the moment because I just lost my strength, but when I kick anything with these particular boots on, what you're going to see is that they will apply the effects. Dragon Talon is actually a very well-known ability specifically for applying these effects. And the reason why people look for this is because of the number of times that the kick effect actually strikes. So more importantly than anything with Dragon Talon is the number of kicks increases with the level of the ability. Let's actually find some monsters here. Sorry, I'm recovering from a sickness here, and my throat is bugging me. But as you can see here, I can kick 8 times relatively quickly, and I can proc those effects on the cheated gloves very, very quickly, which allows me to dish out a relatively large amount of damage within a very short period of time, because I can proc effects very quickly with Dragon Talon. Now, Dragon Talon is more than just a proccing thing. It also allows you to release charges. So it is called a finisher for a reason. So if I have charges built up on my character, I can release those charges into the monsters as well. These charges will guarantee the hit of Dragon Talon. Now, each charge is released once per attack. So, for instance, if I have any of the charges over here, doesn't matter which one, they can build up to 3. Those charges will allow me to guarantee 3 simultaneous hits from Dragon Talon. Now, there are currently 7 kicks on this, and you can go as high as 8 when it comes to Dragon Talon. It does start out a little bit lower than this in the beginning, and as you level up the ability, it will continually gaining kicks. It gains 2 at level 6. It gains 3 at level 12. You get 4 at level 18 and 5 at level 24, and so forth and so on, until eventually when you get to a decent level, you're looking at 8 kicks, which is starts at level 42, which I'm 1 level off. So if I put my martial arts gloves back on, I will be at 8 kicks. You can get to level 9 at level 48, and if you can actually get that high, there is actually 10 kicks at level 54, which I don't know if that's actually possible. Now, Dragon Talon is one of those abilities that is utilized for very specific purposes. Because it hits so fast, and because it actually hits the target multiple times within that one, attack sequence, what people are generally doing is they're utilizing it to apply an effect. Whether it be Crushing Blow, whether it be Open Wounds, whether it be something like a Rift Sin that utilizes % chance to cast Frozen Orb. There are hundreds of different ways you can utilize a very fast attack ability, which applies its effect, over a very short duration. Now, whether this is bombing a target with something like Phoenix Strike, which can be extremely powerful, if I'll show you how that works. But basically, what you're doing is you're building up these charges, and then you're utilizing the ability to apply all of these effects at the same time on the targets. So, like this, which causes a huge explosion. And as you can see, all the charges have been burned from my character because I've kicked 8 times. I had 3 charges of each, and also I'm utilizing these items which allow me to have a chance not to consume those charges, but I still burned all the charges before my 8 kicks was finished. So I was able to initiate a large burst of damage within that time period. And this is really what a lot of people love to use Dragon Talon for, is burst damage of some type. Now, whether that's Crushing Blow burst damage, or whether it's some sort of chance to cast burst damage, or whether you're just releasing large amounts of charges, it definitely can come in really handy. Now, the really cool thing about this ability is you can combine it with other finishers. So another very good finisher to combine this with would be Dragon Flight. Dragon Flight is a teleport. So what you would do is, something like this. You would go ahead and you would build your ability, and you would get your charges running. And then you can just simply teleport into a group of monsters like this, and then use your kick to unleash the rest of the charges from the target. And being able to teleport in and then unleashing your kicks is going to be a very powerful ability, because you're going to be able to go directly into the fight, directly targeting the monster that you want, and then unleash all those charges directly on top of that monster. A very good example would be Shank. Like, for instance, I could go ahead and just build 3 charges right here, and then I could teleport on top of Shank and then unleash all of the charges directly in his face, bypassing basically the majority of his army. Now, one of the most interesting things that people love to use Dragon Talon for is killing bosses. With a large amount of Crushing Blow, you can effectively demolish a monster from existence, because the way that Crushing Blow works is it dishes out a rather large amount of percentage-based damage. So if you have a monster who has, say, 1,000 life, and you dish out 25% damage to this monster, then you're going to dish out 250 damage. And then he has 750, and then it's 25%, 25% of 750, and then 25% of that, and then 25% of that. And there is a diminishing return. So eventually the monster will get to the point where his HP will fall to a very small amount of HP. Like, for instance, if he only has 100 HP left and you hit him with a crushing blow of 25%, well, 25% of 100 is only 25, and so you're really not doing very much damage anymore, but it's still going to keep applying that crushing blow damage no matter how low his HP gets until he eventually dies. And this allows you to rip a monster's HP down from a very high percentage to a very low percentage very quickly, because you can apply that crushing blow to a monster extremely fast. In this particular case with Dragon Talon, you've got 8 kicks. You can apply that 25% to a target 8 times within that time period, assuming of course you've hit the monster. And if you have some of these charges up, you can guarantee that these attacks will actually land, at least 3 of them. And you can reduce a monster's HP. So let's do a little theoretical example here, and let's just say we have a monster that has 1 million HP, right? And we've hit him 8 times successfully with Dragon Talon with a 100% chance of crushing blow. Well, first off, we're going to subtract him with 25% crushing blow, right? So that's number 1. Then we're going to do it again, 25%, which is going to be number 2. And then we're going to subtract that again, so 25%, and now we're at 421,000. And now we're going to subtract that again. And now we've only applied it 4 times, so we still got to apply it 4 more times. So now 25% again, 25% again, 25% again, and 25% again. So now we are looking at a monster that originally had 1 million HP, is only sitting at 100,112, roughly rounded up to 113. So we're literally looking at a monster who has lost 90% of his HP in 1 Dragon Talon. And this is the insanity that Dragon Talon offers, is that not only does it offer you the actual kick damage itself, but it allows you to apply other effects. And by the way, I was not calculating in the actual damage of the ability. So while the crushing blow is in effect, while that is being applied to the monster, it is also going to apply the damage of each kick to the monster as well. So we're also going to be taking off the 773 to 1,261 each time. It's also going to be applying open wounds to the target, so he's going to be bleeding the entire time. And then we also will have any other chance to cast abilities which may be going off. If you are a Rift Sin and you're applying Frozen Orb, or if you are a Lawbringer Sin and you've got Decrepify running, so it's going to reduce his physical resistance. Or maybe you have any other number of very interesting choices for the assassin sitting on your weapon slot. Maybe you're just having fun with, like Frost Nova spam from the unique claw. There's tons of different options that you could potentially use when it comes to a kick sin, and those 8 kicks can be absolutely insane. Now, what are the bad things about Dragon Talon? Well, the bad things about Dragon Talon are, well, number 1, the attack rating's kind of terrible. Unless you have some pretty good equipment, there's a very little chance that you're going to actually hit all 8 abilities. It also has a knockback effect on it if you land the last kick. So the last kick in the sequence, no matter how many kicks that is the one that actually knocks back the target. So if you miss that last kick, it will also effectively nullify the knockback effect. It also doesn't really do a tremendously large amount of damage. Not like itself. And yes, you can dish out some pretty interesting numbers by utilizing other abilities, a crushing blow and things like that, but the damage that it actually outputs itself isn't like super duper amazing. And the only way that you can actually increase that, as we talked about earlier, is by the kick damage on the boots. And the Myrmidon Greaves is already the highest kick damage that you can possibly obtain for the assassin. There are obviously many different kind of Myrmidon Greaves that you could put on. You can put on Shadow Dancers, you could put on the Gore Riders upgraded You could even throw on a pair of IK boots if that's your fancy, if you don't have anything else at that particular moment. Not exactly a terrible choice if you didn't have another option. But in general, when it comes to this ability, you're really looking at what can I take advantage of with this high number of kick account. Like, I'm trying to get whatever it is that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that I'm kicking 8 times. You don't really want a ability that is only going to go off every once in a while, or it's not going to be something that you can stack on a target. Like, for instance, if the ability has a huge amount of next hit delay, like Claws of Thunder has a pretty huge next hit delay of 4, which will get in the way. So it will actually cause itself to not hit the target within a very short period of time. To give you an idea of how that works, if you're out there and you're using Claws of Thunder on a target, for instance, what you'll see is the Novas will all come out at the same time. Within a frames of 4, which is essentially 1/10 of a second, if anything hits the same target twice within that 1/10 of a second, it will not do any additional damage. And depending on how fast you're kicking, depending on what your breakpoints are, you can actually get it to the point where the Claws of Thunder effects are overlapping to the point where they will not do additional damage, which is unfortunate. So it's also always important to remember next hit delay when you're thinking about stuff like Dragon Talon. Fire effects also do not stack. So it's also important to note that when you're talking about, like, for instance, the meteor falling will dish out damage. Now, that damage that the meteor does when it hits will stack. However, the fire damage that is subsequently on the ground afterward will not stack. So even though you see 2 meteors fall on the ground at the same time, this fire damage that's on the ground is not going to actually stack with each other. So you can have multiple fire effects on the ground coming from something like Dragon Talon, but it's not going to actually cause those fire effects to burn the target any hotter or any faster or for any more damage than they would otherwise get hit by with just one. And that's just because fire damage effects don't stack in that way. They'll still burn the target, and they'll still prevent the target from regenerating. They just won't, multiplicatively damage the target. Like, for instance, this says it does 3,914 damage per second with the fire damage effect, right? So if I were to trigger 8 of those on top of each other, it's not going to add 3,914, times 8 and tick that onto a target. It will, however, do one thing which is interesting, is that although it will not stack damage, since you have multiple fire effects going off at the same time and they're overlapping, the target will burn for longer. It will burn for the same amount of damage. It won't actually increase, but at least the fire effect will stay up for longer, and the monster will obviously burn for longer, which is certainly very nice. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to Dragon Talon. This ability is definitely one of those abilities that you're going to need a large amount of attack rating for. I would recommend negative defense or negative monster defense percentage. Both of those things are really effective when it comes to Dragon Talon, as well as utilizing some of these charges can be helpful to ensure at least that the first 3 kicks land no matter what. Even if you don't pump points into it, it can still be really effective even if you only have 4 or 5 kicks. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and as always, make sure you kick that like button. Otherwise, I won't get any views. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.